Story time. It is 2022. I just turned 18 and decide to move out. I move into a really shitty ghetto-ass apartment with a friend who happens to ride a motorcycle. Fast forward about 3 weeks and I decide that it would be a great idea to sell my car, a 2006 Mustang, and buy a motorcycle. Yes, fantastic idea, Tristan. Thank you very much. So very soon, I was riding home on my new-to-me 2018 Kawasaki Ninja 400 as my only mode of transportation. Now, financially speaking, it kind of made sense. Insurance is incredibly cheap on that bike. It gets around 60 miles to the gallon, and maintenance is a whole lot cheaper than a car. A set of tires is like $200, so financially, I had an excuse to make, but realistically, I just wanted to be a cool biker dude. As we're at the beginning, I will set up a little timeline here. This was in mid-spring in Oklahoma. We were in that little lull of soon being 100-degree weather all the time, but not as many storms as usual. A few hail and tornado storms, but nothing that kept me off the road too much. Weather-wise, I was able to go to Walmart and get a oversized poncho for riding in the rain because I definitely could not afford an actual rain jacket at the time, and I was able to get some waterproof pants at the same time. The poncho was great, but I ripped those pants straight up the crotch very fast, but I live very close to work, so if I did have to ride in the rain, it was only about a 4-minute ride and I was back inside. Some of the other issues you might think of is storage space, and obviously there is hardly any at all. I had a small backpack I could use for little bits of groceries, but I would highly recommend Walmart Plus. It's like $12 a month and gets you free deliveries for orders over $35, and I usually throw in a tip as well, but that makes water bottles, toilet paper, any bigger items available for delivery, and even though you're spending a little bit more, I usually end up saving more money because I'm not going grocery shopping while I'm hungry and coming home with way too much fattening snack food. So I had pretty much figured it out, how to daily ride a sport bike with minimal issues. I was living the dream until June 3rd, 2022. About a month and a half, maybe 2 months after buying my bike, my worst nightmare happened. See, it was about to be my now ex-girlfriend's birthday soon, and I was on a mission to get the most fire gift. I left my apartment, started down the road, and about a block away, I was cut off. I was able to swerve out of the way and miss the truck, but remember, I was only 18 with way too big of an ego. I looked over, stared the guy down, and gave him the bird. It was only about 2 seconds later that I turned my head forward, saw that the light ahead was red, and there was a car stopped about 10 feet in front of me, and I was going about 45 miles per hour. I don't remember the impact. I remember seeing the car in front of me, darkness, a sharp pain in my knee, and then the sky. See, I'd flown over the top of this Volkswagen Passat and landed in front of it. Some old lady from a car somewhere ran over to me, and it didn't take long for me to get up and start running trying to find my bike. It was laid over and the front end torn apart. Yeah, this story sucks so far, but hold on, it does get better. I finally got the bike home and started taking off the fairings to assess the damage, and to my surprise, some fairings were broken and the upper fairing stay that holds the headlight straight was bent upwards, but nothing else was broken. The forks were straight, the radiator was straight, and no damage on the wheel itself either, just some cosmetic issues. I was over the moon about that, so much so that the night after my crash, I pulled off the headlight and all the fairings and rode that bitch to dinner. I had just wrecked, hurting, and the bike was torn up, but I was so in love with riding, you could not get me off of that bike. For the next few months, I rode the bike naked, threw the headlight back on, and that was it for a while, since I couldn't afford new fairings or the fairing stay. Eventually, being a newly freed man from that relationship, I miraculously had a lot more money, so I ordered the fairing stay, got a few new parts, painted them with some rattle cans, and I was back in business. The bike looked decent again, it ran good, and I was very happy. Well, it ran good for a few days. Very soon, I started having an issue. While I was riding, my chain was making some very unpleasant noises and some crunching, and my fuck ass had just spent all of that money on cosmetics. See, all of my friends rode shaft or belt-driven bikes. I had never learned you needed to lube the chain and, take care of the bike. So again, I was put in a predicament of saving some money and having a new chain put on. Very soon, I was back in an argument with said ex. I was pissed off and went for a ride to cool off. Well, cool off for me at the time meant going 130 miles an hour down the highway for about 30 minutes until I pulled off the highway, had no power, no oil pressure, and a blown hose. That engine was toast. I once again needed my bike thrown in the back of a truck and taken home. Now for this little bit, my parents had loaned me a car to use while I figured out what the fuck to do. I was trying to maybe sell the bike for parts, but that definitely wouldn't get me enough to get a new bike. A new engine would be at least $1,600, and that definitely was not in the question, and I was just stuck not knowing what to do. But I know what you can do. Hit it. I then received a message on Facebook from someone in the same riding group as me, and they said, hey, I have an engine for a 2019 Ninja 400. Do you want to buy it? I asked how much he wanted for it and was expecting somewhere in the realm of $1,200 to $1,500, but this absolute godsend then proceeded to say $300 and it's yours. Now at the time I was extremely broke and had to wait 2 days to get paid, but I said I'll be there on Friday, and lo and behold, I had an engine in the back of the car, and the next weekend threw it in the bike. For the next year or so, I rode that bike pretty much daily unless it was ice or snow outside. Eventually I ended up getting a car with heated seats and, air conditioning, and I don't ride it nearly as often anymore, but I still say to this day that that year and a half of daily riding the bike were some of the best times and memories of my life. And that's the story of how I daily rode a sport bike for over a year, and the tips that I would give to any rider planning to do the same: get full coverage insurance. If something happens to your only mode of transportation, you need to be covered. I got extremely lucky in my circumstances, but it very easily could have gone very south. Get you some heated gloves for those cold days. If you can't afford the expensive ones, get some cheap $100 ones off of Amazon. You can ride a lot longer in the cold if you can still feel your hands. Be extremely meticulous with your maintenance and always pre-trip your bike, even if it's inconvenient. One loose bolt can be the difference between making it home or not. Always keep up with oil changes, chains, sprockets, and especially those tires. They're super cheap, and I'd recommend changing them out every year or two or more depending on how much you ride. And finally, get Walmart Plus and get your groceries delivered. It is 1000% worth it. Saves you time, money, and so you don't have to strap your cucumbers and condoms where everyone can see them both at the same time. And always ride safe. Keep your head on a swivel and always assume that car beside you is going to merge without seeing you. Always assume that the car in front of you is going to brake check you. Give yourself enough space to stop, and always watch out behind you that the car stops as well. Other than that, just enjoy the fuck out of the ride.